Okay. And are there people that have done that kept their money there the whole time?
Yes, the very loyal ones. It's not been a straight
Okay.
line up, to be clear.
Okay. So let's talk about for a moment some of the campaigns you've done as activists. Some of them have worked out, some have not. Chipotle has seemed to have worked out, but you did a couple that were difficult ones. So Herbalife or Valiant, they didn't work out. What would you say is the mistake you made in hindsight and that you would try to avoid in the future?
Sure. So there's sort of 8 principles that have driven our investment success. And when we have veered from those 8 principles, we've lost money. And after the 2000, we went through a very difficult period, circa 2015, 2016. The 2 investments you mentioned were big drivers of that. It was, if you will, experiences making mistakes and learning from them. And it was a moment of reflection for the firm. And I went back to the core principles that have driven our success for the first 12 years. And I had a member of the investment team literally engrave them in a stone tablet, not dissimilar from Moses' 10 Commandments. And I had that stone tablet put in what you might call a deal toy, sits on everyone's desk in the office. And we've adhered to those principles, ever since. And, we've been fortunate to return to the success we had for the first dozen years. So I think it's about keeping to, our principles are basically, we want to invest in simple, predictable, free cash flow generative, dominant companies with large barriers to entry that earn high returns on capital, that have limited exposure to extrinsic risk we can't control, strong balance sheets, don't need access to capital to survive, have excellent management and good governance. Sounds logical, but occasionally we've diverged, and there's those times, there's a certain discipline that comes with investments, and there always seems to be a countervailing quality that caused us to diverge. But in really each case where we've compromised on business quality or complexity, we've been harmed from an investment standpoint.
Now, you mentioned earlier that tech companies seem to have done pretty well. Your firm seems to invest more in, let's say, consumer retail, or at least some of the visible ones are in that area. Are you a tech investor in the sense of investing in tech companies, or is that something you plan to do in the future, or you wish you had done more of?
Sure. So look, there are always investments I would rather not have missed. I feel like I could have figured out Amazon, but that's a backward-looking sort of approach. But I don't think Amazon so much as a technology company. In the same way, Starbucks is in a way a technology company. One of its competitive advantages versus the corner coffee shop is its digital ordering and delivery and contactless way of interacting with customers. I think every business is a technology company. What we are not is we're not investors in pure technology companies. We wouldn't invest in a self-driving company with no revenues, but we might invest in many of the businesses we own are heavy users of technology, whether they're consumer facing or whether they're industrial companies or manufacturing businesses. We're looking for businesses with very attractive economic characteristics. There are many so-called companies that are in the NASDAQ. People think of them as tech companies, but they have the kind of economic characteristics we like. We just don't like businesses where a couple of young people in a garage, somewhere in Silicon Valley can come up with a disrupting technology that disintermediates the business.
Suppose a young person at your alma mater, Harvard, or any other college said, look, I'm watching Bill Ackman. He's a smart guy. He's making some money. I'd like to do that. I want to be hired by Bill Ackman. What do you look for when you're trying to hire young people? You want somebody that's exactly like you? What are the skills that you're looking for?
So we're really a private equity firm that invests only in the public markets. And so when we've recruited for the investment team, if that's what you're referring to, we're looking for people, the typical candidate spent a couple of years in investment banking in a great training program at a big firm, a Goldman Sachs, et cetera. Blackstone, or the old version of Blackstone, their Blackstone advisory business, we recruited some people from there. And then, several years in private equity, because private equity investors focus on simple, predictable, free cash flow generative businesses and focus on businesses that can support a large amount of debt and really determine valuation, think about industry dynamics. So we're looking for someone with, that kind of a background, usually 4 or 5 years out of school. And then they join the team, and we've had a lot of continuity and duration for people who have come to the firm. But we hire very, very few people. We only have a 7-person investment team. The plan is to keep it quite small.
Well, when you had your problems a couple of years ago, you alluded to, and I talked about Valiant, and for example, did you ever lose faith that you would be able to turn your business around? And did you ever doubt that you could make this a successful business again?
Sure. So, I think I've always liked to say that success is not a straight line up. And I would give these talks at business schools about how to deal with failure, and then I failed. And I had to implement the strategy that I was a proponent of to business school students. But I think the key, look, we have a business with a strategy that makes sense. We made some mistakes. Experience is learning from those mistakes. That's the key. And then, I was quite confident that if we adhered to the principles that built the success of the firm, or re-adhered, if you will, that we return to success. And it's a question of duration and every day coming into the office and making decisions with good judgment and being level-headed. And with time, I was confident that things would recover, and feel very fortunate that things have worked out the way that we expected. But I'm certainly going to be, now at 54, I'm done making mistakes. So that's my business plan going forward. We're going to be very, very watchful about veering from the course that has led to our success.